I'm John Mancini, former president of AIIM and currently president of Content Results. And I'm really pleased to be here with you for the announcement of our new Industry Watch report on mastering your Microsoft 365 and SharePoint investment, moving from rapid adoption to sensible maturity. I hope everyone is staying safe in these COVID times, and what we'll do today is walk through 5 key recommendations related to your Microsoft 365 investment. First order of business is to thank the sponsors of this report. Without their support and without their underwriting, we would not be able to bring you this report. I do have to say that they were not involved in the content of this report. That was purely based on AIIM's perspectives and that of our CIP panel. But we do appreciate their involvement and engagement and support of these kinds of research activities. Second order of business. Make sure that you download both the report and the infographic. These are available for free for a limited time only, and you really should go about it right now. The URL is on the screen, and you'll get an opportunity to download both the report and the infographic. The AIIM staff has done a terrific job in the design of this. I do the content, they do the design, and you really should take a look at it. So I will go through one piece of data in this report, and then the rest I'm going to focus on recommendations, and I'll talk about that in a second. But the first thing that I'd like to really cover in this one piece of data is this question that we use to screen people for this report. Are you broadly familiar with how Microsoft 365 is used within your organization? And there's a couple of takeaways from this as you think about some of the things that I'll talk to you about. The first one is that Microsoft 365 is ubiquitous. Its use varies, but it is present in most organizations. Second thing you should take away from this data point is that the perspectives that I'll go through and the perspectives on the detailed data that you will see in the report are basically those of people that are familiar with Microsoft 365. So keep that in mind as we go through this. So what we did with the report this time is we did a host of data crunching like we normally do, and then we took the data and presented it to 8 CIPs, Certified Information Professionals. And if you are not a AIIM CIP, you really should be, because it establishes really the benchmark for what it means to be an information professional. But I really want to thank these CIPs for their perspective, because that's at the heart of the recommendations that we'll make here. I should say that I gathered these folks together on a conference call, and basically what we did is go through some of the data. I got their recommendations and perspectives, not as representatives of their companies or organizations, but as individuals. And then secondly, I did so under what is called Chatham rules, where basically people are free to give their direct and personal perspectives. They will be quoted on those perspectives, but they will not be attributed to them. So it sets the stage for a really honest give and take on some of the issues that we wanted to talk about. So let's talk about these 5 key recommendations and go through. And like I say, the purpose of this presentation is to give you a little different slice, if you will, of the Industry Watch report. Not so much data crunch, get the report, get the data, but kind of an insight, if you will, to what's in the report. So the first key recommendation is to take advantage of the demands for remote working and leverage the growing C-suite awareness that information management matters. That's a really important thing right now. You know, we have this unique opportunity to take the lemon of the whole COVID experience and turn it into some degree of lemonade in the area of automating information management. That's an opportunity. The business, all of a sudden, all the things that we've been talking about for years and years, they get it. They don't necessarily understand how to get what they want, but they get it. They understand that the ability of the organization to sustain itself, to be competitive, to transform, is ultimately dependent on how information is managed and how that information can be managed regardless of where someone is sitting. And that's an important opportunity for all of us in the records and information management space to take advantage of right now. The second point I wanted to make, and the second key recommendation from our CIP panel, is to focus on architecture as a key to automating governance. That's a really important insight, I think, from the panel. It wasn't always the case that some of the capabilities relative to governance were sufficient within the Office 365, or more particularly the SharePoint platform, going way back to, say, 2007 and 2010, and some of the on-prem versions. That's not the case now. There's a whole different iteration of capabilities. And so what I heard from the panel is this desire to really rethink this question about platforms and how much they can rely on M365 in order to handle their governance needs. But the key there is that if you're going to rely on that, you've got to focus on architecture. Third recommendation was this idea of what is the pace of change going to be within the M365 platform. And anybody who's been involved in it knows that as this is shifted to the cloud, the pace of change is just unbelievable. And it's really, really difficult to keep up. And I heard that from all of the panel members as they thought through some of their experiences. So what that means is thinking through the question of how much you're going to try to do natively within the platform, and where specifically do you need third-party solutions to augment that capability. That doesn't mean that third-party solutions are going away, far from it. But what it does mean is that you really need to think about where and how and who you are going to focus on in order to maximize the potential of those capabilities, because the pace of change, the ride that we're going on, is going to be really, really fast. Fourth recommendation, and this is fasten your seatbelts, we have got to learn from the past mistakes that we all made relative to SharePoint sprawl. If we're going to get ahead of this content explosion, we have got to get serious about what disposition means in organizations. And when I talk to organizations, looking at the insights from the CIP panel, it's clear that disposition is still a huge problem for organizations. Trying to think about how do you get out of manual practices that were based on kind of a predictable volume of things that came about in the paper world, and get ahead of this tsunami of electronic information. Disposition is the key. Get focused on it now, or else you're going to have a huge problem downstream. And then the last recommendation is really an interesting one when you think about some of the things that we've been talking about in the information management space for a long time, is this idea of getting people to manage their information within a platform. And so we've been talking about that, oh my gosh, for years and years and years in this space. And still, people go off and use their little pet solutions here and there because either the video wasn't good enough, or the collaboration wasn't good enough, or the document sharing wasn't good enough. This explosion of teams that's going on within organizations right now is a really interesting thing to think about, because it provides the seeds of both finally getting people onto a single platform, but it also provides the seeds of chaos if we're not careful. And so really think through that question of what teams means for your organization. What does that explosion mean? What does it mean to have everybody all of a sudden using a common collaboration platform? And what it means is that you're creating information and records everywhere, because every time you create a document, you create a chat within Teams, you're engaged in the same kind of information management issues that we've always talked about. Again, a lot of opportunity and a lot of challenge. So my last thing, again, thanks so much to the sponsors. You see them across the bottom of the screen here. Don't wait to download this publication, because there's a host of data that will be helpful in making your own case within your organization for change. And I think that you'll find the information to be presented in a really interesting and accessible fashion. And download it now, both the infographic and the ebook. This is John Mancini on behalf of AIIM. Thank you very much for your time.